Now we actually move into what I probably would say is the most overwhelming part of Forex trading. I mean, maybe you thought going into this that it was, oh great, what does this pair thing mean? What is a pip? I keep hearing this quote. How exactly does that work? Heck, I don't even know how money is made in the Forex market. What are you trading? It's not stocks. What are you trading? Which, cough, cough, by the way, you now know is exchange rates are what we're trading. But, so maybe you thought kind of all that. But in my mind, the broker is just kind of the overwhelming part. And I don't say that like it's impossible to find a broker, but in this day and age of technology and of, just all the choices available, it's just, there's a lot of choices out there, and, they're coming at you from all different directions. So, right from the get-go, if you're saying, Clay, just give me like a list of 3 brokers, I am not going to do that. Why is that the case? Well, as I've mentioned in past videos, my goal is for this training course to be, available and to still be getting purchased, years from now. And 2 or 3 years from now, I don't want to name brokers and then all of a sudden have those people just not be around anymore. And I would rather just show you the overall concepts, the steps to take, to look at. And that way, no matter what happens in the world of brokers, who the people are, what the names are, you can still apply these principles, and, that'll lead you, or help lead you to the broker that's going to best suit you. So no, I'm not going to give specific exact brokers, because that's not going to be any, helpful, because like I said, and as you'll see, there's a lot of personal preference that comes into this. We've already seen that when we were looking at the Forex quotes. Maybe you thought one quote was just, oh wow, that really is appealing to my eye, whereas somebody else might have thought, oh man, that's kind of confusing. I don't like the way that looks. So that's just one minor example of why it just wouldn't be right of me to say, hey, and you have to use this broker. No, I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you my opinion on, the overarching principles that you should follow, and those should help kind of at least steer you down the path to whatever best suits your needs. So we'll get started. I don't want to, like I said, I'm not trying to set off a bad tone in terms of, oh great, this is going to be, terrible. It's going to be totally hard. Nothing like that. But there is a lot of choices out there. So if anything, this is more of a reassuring of, wow, Clay, I've already kind of looked for brokers a little bit, and I feel, it's crazy. You're not alone. You're definitely not alone. I got the same impression. I've already touched on a couple of these things, but, just want to really reiterate them. Because like I said, it's not like you're some sort of idiot or moron because you have any sorts of these feelings. It's really normal, and I think that the vast majority of people probably do have these feelings. But the biggest fact of the matter is, there is no must-use broker. And, anybody out there portraying that or trying to imply that, my guess is they're probably getting paid. There's some sort of affiliate marketer for that. And, we'll get to that in a little bit. But just understand, there is no must-use broker. There's not a one-size-fits-all broker. Because there is a lot of, factors that go into it. So whether you want, chocolate or vanilla or strawberry ice cream, that's all going to depend on a few different things. So like anybody that's saying that, the must-have ice cream is strawberry, well, some of you may be saying, I agree with that. Other people may be saying, no, I like chocolate better, or I like vanilla better. So there is no must-use. Same in the world of brokers, no must-use. And while there's all sorts of, advertisements and, articles and suggestions and this, that, and the other flying at you, at the end of the day, when all that dust has settled, a broker's all about your strategy and then your personal taste, personal preference, going back to, like I said earlier, the Forex quotes. Looking at those, one person may say those are ugly, another person may say those are beautiful. Now, the other thing that I noticed, and is not shocking because it happens with all the brokers, is, when researching, it's overwhelming. But the reason it's overwhelming is it's hard to get any sort of credible information about broker suggestions, top brokers, recommended brokers, any of those searches. It's just everybody is talking great about brokers. And then, when you look closer and closer and you kind of just pay attention to certain things, you'll see that a lot of people out there that have these top 5 lists or top 10 lists, the only reason any of the brokers are on the list is because they are an affiliate, meaning they are getting paid if you sign up. So if you click on their button that says, check out this broker's website, and you go there and then you get paid, or then you sign up, they will get paid. So, I mean, that's kind of the big question that I was always asking myself is, well, is this site talking great about a certain broker because they're getting paid or because they truly believe that they're a good broker? Is there some sort of hidden incentive here in terms of, the affiliate, or do they really believe that? So that's kind of the big problem that I have is, am I getting an unbiased opinion here or not? In this video, I'm not going to name any specific brokers, so it's not like you have to worry about, oh, I wonder if Clay is being paid as an affiliate, meaning he wants us to sign up there so he gets paid. There's no, like I said, no affiliate marketing going on here, because I'm not even going to name, as I already said, I'm not going to name any sort of specific brokers. But, in your research, just be very careful of that, of affiliate marketers and, those, top 10 list, top 5 list. Well, I mean, is number one because you get the point here. As I already said, I'm not going to be naming any broker in particular. I want this to remain as timeless as possible and as relevant as possible, as it stands right now as I record, as it stands 3 years from now, as it stands 5 years from now. We just want to go over some general guidelines, and that way you can apply this to whatever particular, situation you may be in, or you may be looking to head in, because there's many different paths you can go. So depending on the path, that is going to have a big influence on the type of broker. The very first thing in any of these, actually this isn't even really a guideline. This is, a must-use rule. And there's no way you're ever going to convince me otherwise, because I think the logic is pretty flawless on here. But if some broker, seems like the greatest thing ever, has the best commissions ever, has the best platform ever, is literally like your knight in shining armor, is just a thing of beauty, and then you figure out that they're not regulated or there's no sorts of registrations, it doesn't matter. From right there, it's, wow, I put all that time and effort into figuring out and learning about this broker, and then they're not even regulated. Regulation is a must-use rule, and this is really the only must-use. I know I just kind of am contradicting myself a little bit saying there's no must-use broker, but there is a must-use rule, and that is the broker's got to be regulated. It's got to be registered in some form. I mean, when you stop and think about it, if some sort of broker is, well, kind of two parts. First, if it's not regulated, if it's not registered, and you can't find any sort of documentation at all, then that just doesn't matter. But even on, a secondary note, if a broker is regulated or registered in a country where you every night you turn on the news or you're reading the headlines, and this country is always in the headlines because there's bad stuff going on, and it seems very kind of volatile as a country, as an economy, as a, whatever it has to go, as, whatever the geopolitical issues may be going on here. And it's just, wow, why is that country always in the headlines? And it's always really kind of shady things that they're in the, in the news for. Then even if they do claim to be regulated and registered, think about it. Does it really matter that they're regulated in, insert country here, that is just always in the news? So even in that case, that can be highly risky. So it's twofold. One, yeah, they need to be registered, they need to be regulated, but then that next layer of context is they also need to be regulated and registered in a country that's more stable, is one that is in a developed part of the world that is not, considered really third. You get the point here. Now, that brings up, okay, that's a good point, Clay. I would agree. There's really no point in digging any further into a broker unless they are registered, and they're registered in a country that is not always popping up on my phone of now this is going on or now that is going on. So how do you know if they're actually regulated or registered? So the easiest way to do that is just to scroll on down to the bottom of their page, and there's going to be a few different views on how it would appear. So the first is, for this broker, I scrolled down and it actually didn't say what a couple of the other ones did. It actually had the about, and then you would have to go and click over on the regulation portion of the page. So some of them may look like that. They're not exactly going to say, but on other ones, you see the big old disclaimer here down at the bottom. And what you're really looking for is some sort of commission or some sort of, exchange that they're, a member of. And right here, you can see that they give their association number right there. The big one, at least for the American brokers, and the one that, in my opinion, you'd want to see regulated by. But like I said, there's European ones and there's other ones that are regulated by those countries. Like I said, I would consider Europe not third world countries. But the Commodity Future Trading Commission, important one, otherwise known as the CFTC. That is one that I would keep a specific eye out for, and just make sure that they're a member of it. And also the National Futures Association short there is the NFA. So if they're, members of that and, are giving you their numbers and all that, that's a good thing. Again, down here, you can see for this broker, I guess I did mention their name, but I am by no means recommending them. But, they're registered with this and the CTFC, and then right here, the NFA, and they give their, number once again. So these brokers, I'm not recommending any of them. I'm just saying these are the things that you want to pay attention to right from the get-go. If they're not regulated, if they're not registered, then kind of screw off, right? Because there's no point in wasting any further time trying to learn anything more about the broker. So it's kind of odd when you think about it. The first thing you should do is you almost work backwards. You get to a broker's page, and then the first thing you do is what? Scroll down. Most of us start at the top of the page and work our way down, right? In our case, we want to start at the bottom of the page and then work our way back up, because the bottom of the page is where you're going to find this sort of information, or at least you're going to find some sort of, about us or something that you can then click to go to see the regulation or registrations or whatever. So that is by far top priority. This topic also leads into another important avenue, and that is, just thinking about capitalization, because capitalization is really the name of the game. So capitalization just means, how well funded are they? What are they doing with their funds? In other words, if you want to get paid, if your account is showing you, oh, wow, I've grown my account X amount, that's great. Well, remember, at that point in time, your money's in somebody else's hands. It's there, that's popping up on a screen. But does that mean that when you say, all right, send this to my bank account, is it actually going to be there? So if you want to get paid, your broker needs to have good, solid capitalization. Now, I'm not trying, oh, great, this sounds like I got to become a lawyer to figure all this out. No, it's straightforward. And if you really, and I'm not saying this is necessary, I'm just saying there is documentation out there that will, lead you to, people's capitalization, all these sorts of numbers if you want it. And you can go to cftc.gov, and that's going to give you a list of the members, and then brings you to a page. I hesitated, did I really want to put this page in here, just because, pages change, formats change, appearances change, but whether or not, it looks exactly like this, when you go to that site and then you look at, dig around and then find the list of the members, you can click on these reports down here, and that opens up, a page that's showing you capitalization. It's showing you all sorts of numbers, which is pretty intimidating if I'm being honest. If you stop and break it down and go column by column, okay, it's not too bad. Again, am I saying you have to go through all this? Am I saying, don't be freaking out? It's just, if they're on that list, then there are certain requirements that need to be met. So if they're on the list, those requirements are being met, and those requirements are there to ensure, that you are being protected. Now, there's no such thing as a 100% protection. Crap happens, right? Brokers get sued. But that's not just the Forex market. That can be any market. So just because they're on this list, am I saying that you are guaranteed to have no issues ever, ever, ever? You're 100% guaranteed. Well, no such thing as a guarantee. So if they're on this list, though, what I'm saying is your odds, your probabilities are highly in your favor that everything will be okay. So I want to say that again, because I don't want to get somebody to come back and say, hey, I'm not saying that if they're on this list, if they're on, a member of this, that you are 100% guaranteed, because shadiness happens, crap happens. But if they're on the list, you can really tilt the probabilities and odds in your favor, that everything is okay and, will be okay, but no guarantees. One guarantee, though, that you can probably make is if you do, if they're on this list and then you look and you see that is their world headquarters, that's probably not a good sign. I would say, why don't you look to find another broker, because I'm not liking the odds there. I think the odds and probabilities may be that if you send them your money, you're not going to get anything back. So, that's not a good sign. But for the vast, part, if they're, a part of the CFTC and, those other regulation agencies, that we've talked about on the previous slide, then you can tilt the odds in your favor. But again, not trying to scare you, not trying to freak you out, but you got to respect the process. You can't just go and find, oh, wow, this is a $10, minimum fee to open up an account, and they offerage, 8 million to 1 leverage, and they have, the spreads are as tight as can be, and, if it sounds too good to be true and everything is just so beautiful, and then you go and see, well, there's not really any regulations anywhere, but I don't care. Everything's so beautiful. You're setting yourself up for a not so good situation. Now let's talk about the most cared about thing, especially if maybe you're coming over from the stock market. But even if you're not and you're totally brand new, yes, to participate in the market, there are commissions and fees. So this is always usually right up at the top of a broker or of a trader's list when they're doing their research in terms of brokers. And in our situation, there needs to be a question right up front, because that's going to, dictate exactly what path you should go down in terms of the type of broker. I do fully understand that, if you're right at the get-go of your journey, this may be kind of hard in terms of, well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. But it's just kind of, eventually you're going to have to know, what will my overall trading strategy be? More specifically, what are you looking to do? What do you think you want to do? Maybe you already know, what do you plan on doing? Now, if you plan on day trading, meaning you're going to get in and out of trades very quickly, most times you are buying, selling, shorting, covering, all that stuff in the same day. So if that's what you are planning to do, well then, you're planning to be a day trader. You're planning to day trade. Maybe you're thinking, I want to swing trade. So that's, you're getting in and out of trades a bit more slower, sometimes a lot bit slower compared to day trading. I mean, you could be holding for days, weeks, months. I mean, swing trading really kind of opens up into a world of subjectivity. Some would say, well, no, if you're holding for a few days, that's still just a day trader. Some would say, well, no, you got to be in. The point being, you need to identify kind of what you care about. Are you going to be falling more so in the day trading category or the swing trading category? Knowing this is going to save you hassle later on down the road, but I'm not trying to sit here and be like over dramatic either. Let's just look at the worst case thing. Worst case, you say, you know what, I want to be a day trader. So then you kind of go down the path of day trading, and then all of a sudden you figure out, well, not actually. I think swing trading is what I want. So in other words, you are totally wrong at this point in the stage where I'm saying, answering the question, what will your overall strategy be? It's not the end of the world. There's just a little more hassle that's involved, because, well, now you got to maybe do some research, find a new broker, sign up for the new broker, transfer over your funds, all that sort of stuff. So it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it'll be a little bit more hassle. So it's not like this is do or die. You better figure it out right now or you are screwed for the rest of your trading journey. I'm not saying that, but I do like to be dramatic every once in a while. But if you can answer this question to the best of your ability up front, it really can set you on the right path, and then, potentially just save you a lot of time. But like I said, we looked at the worst case, and the worst case really just ends up at a little bit more hassle. Now, the big thing here there are two types of overarching Forex brokers. And maybe you've already, done some research and, try to figure out brokers and have seen these terms and wait, what exactly are these two types? Dealing desk. Dealing desks deal with the MMs, they market makers. And then there's no dealing desks. Some people call them non-dealing desks. These are where they deal with ECNs and STPs. ECNs, electronic communication networks. STP, straight through processing. So we're going to go into both of those and explain, kind of how they fit into the equation. But those are the two big overarching brokers out there. Some brokers market themselves as one. Other brokers, market themselves as the other. Some brokers offer actually both, within their broker network. But those are going to be the two key ones that you're going to see pop up the vast majority of the time. Now, before we talk about, what these brokers, their differences, this is one time where I'm not going to get into the theory and all the little nooks and crannies of, how each broker works. I know I went into more of the theory on pips and how you want to calculate how money is actually made in terms of the Forex. But as far as this is concerned, it really, really does not matter to you at least in my opinion. How the broker's working behind the scenes, it doesn't really work. If you are in the army and, you're going to, all right, there's an enemy running at me right now. I'm going to pull the trigger of this weapon or, of the gun here. Do you really need to know all the physics and, science and, okay, this mechanism does this and this does that. And that, causes this torque on that, which leads to that force, which causes a velocity and then a vector angle of this. And then I just want the practical thing. I want to pull the trigger. I want it to work. I just want to know the broad scheme of how it works. So when you say I want to know how it works, you would want to know, okay, put bullet in, pull trigger. There you go. That's how I'm going to look at the commissions here or not the commissions, the types of brokers. I'm going to talk about how they work, but just from the surface deep. I'm not going to get into the physics and science and all that of it. Now, if you want to learn more about that, then there's lots of resources that'll break it down step by step by step, and this goes here and that goes there, and then that ends up over here, and then this has got to drop down there. But we're going to look at just the surface, the practical side of things. That's really the best way to put it. Now, there's always a trade-off. That's just simple economics. I mean, nothing is always going to be perfect because, in order to get one thing, usually you have to sacrifice something else. And in our case, you could use this in an economic textbook if you really wanted to, because it really does illustrate this example very, very nicely. And really the best way to summarize it is it's apples to oranges, because it's all going to depend on what you want to do going in. So a dealing desk, they're going to have no commissions, which is probably, holla, I want dealing desk. No commissions, that sounds great. However, the spreads are wider. And here's a little review. I've already kind of given you the answer, but remember back to when we talked about the quotes and the spreads. Spreads, again, are the difference between the bid and the ask. But as we said in that video, the wider the spread, the more risk involved. So sure, you are paying no commissions, but now you're having to deal with wider spreads. Now, when I say risk, it's not like these things are super, super risky and you're going to blow up your account. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's the trade-off. You are getting no commissions, but in order to get that, the sacrifice is, all right, now you got to deal with a little bit wider commissions. On the flip side, no dealing desk, you actually need to pay commissions. There are, it's not totally free to trade. However, the trade-off there is, well, now you're paying to get good, tight spreads. The spreads are going to be much lower. They're going to be, they're going to be very close together. That's probably the best way to put it. The spreads are going to be very close together. Now you're thinking, okay, that's great. There's less risk. Well, true, but you're also already going in the hole because you've paid right up front. But in both instances, they have their pros and cons. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying, and this one is for sure what you should do. Well, it's a matter of personal preference. And in some cases, it's a matter of math. I mean, if you're doing your research and one person says that, on average, and brokers will say this, our spreads are 5 pips. And then you're doing research and somebody else says, on average, our spreads are, 1.7 pips. Now, all else being the same, math is going to say, all right, in this case, it's not really personal preference anymore. It's not really personal taste. It's math. I mean, again, all else being the same, assuming that they're both regulated and assuming they're, both, they're not, one's not run out of some shack, at this point, personal taste, kick it out the window. It boils down to math. Well, that would be the broker that's, it figures I decide I want to do another course, and then right then and there, my annotation tool just starts to act up. But anyways, so like I said, personal taste goes out the window. At this point, hope you're saying, well, yeah, this is all just math. I want the tightest spread as possible, so I would want 1.7, versus 5 pips. So even within the brokers, it's going to vary. So make sure you just figure out, and a broker should be telling you what their pips are. Some brokers give you real time, so you can see what their spreads are at that point in time. So it's not some sort of theoretical. This is what our pips usually are. A good broker is going to be giving you access and insight into watching what their spreads are currently in real time. You don't have to trade or anything. It's just showing you what the spreads actually are. So this is apples to oranges even in that regard. Yeah. Brokers are personal preference, but eventually it boils down to, let's just look at the math of the matter and see who's offering, the tightest spreads and such. Now, the big question here is going to be, well, how long do you plan on holding? Circling back to, what is your strategy? I mean, if you are a day trader, are you looking to swing trade? But if you are looking to, hold for, I'm going to buy, this exchange rate at this value, and my theory is X, Y, and Z are going to happen over the next several months, and then I'm going to sell. If that's what your strategy is going to be, then is a spread really that big of a deal? In my opinion, no, because if you're not waiting to sell for several months, that would tell me that you must be looking for some sort of larger type move within the grand scheme of things. And a larger type move, is easily gonna no, I shouldn't use the word easily because nothing in the market is easy, but it should overcome, if you're right, it should overcome that, spread that you initially deal with. And, then everything's kind of just, and at the end, it's okay. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. I mean, of course it always matters because, that's money, but it's not like it's going to, set you in a major hole or anything like that. Whereas if you're day trading and you want to sell not in the next several months or several weeks or several days, but you want to sell within the next several minutes or maybe next several hours, potentially, oh man, I'm in a pretty big hole right there off the get-go because of this spread. Well, that may be different. Again, apples and oranges. Even within swing trading, apples versus oranges. Are you considering swing trading, holding for several days, several months, several weeks? But that's kind of the big question is, if you do plan on holding for longer periods of time, the spread importance really starts to begin to go down. But even with that, I'm not saying that maybe you are a day trader and you find this awesome broker that sure, there are bigger spreads and you don't have to pay commissions, but the spreads are still pretty tight. And, my momentum strategy that I'm using or, whatever sort of, analysis method and system you're using, wow, okay, yeah, then that could have worked too. So I'm not coming across general rule of thumb. If you're going to hold for longer periods of time, then the spreads don't matter as much. That's what I'm getting at, but it's not like I'm saying, keep in mind, this general rule of thumb is not saying if you plan on holding for longer periods of time, then you should use that. I'm just saying spreads don't matter as much. Maybe you're saying, Clay, that's such a cop-out. Well, that's just the whole answers or apples and oranges of things is there's so many different strategies out there. There's so many different personal risk tolerance levels that, heck, even wider. Think about the word wider. Some spreads are wider. What do you consider wider? Somebody might say, okay, yeah, sure, it's 0.5 pips wider, but whatever. That to me, that doesn't mean as much. Maybe somebody else says, to 0.5, what? That is much wider. So there's just so much subjectivity, and that whole debate on the quote unquote wider, at its core point, that's just personal risk tolerance. Some people like roller coasters. Some people like to go skydiving. Other people, no, that's all right. I'm going to sit here on the couch and read a nice book. Does that mean one person's right and one person's wrong? No, it's just both people have different ideas of fun, which again goes down to how are they perceiving risk. Obviously, the person that likes to skydive, I don't know, reading a book curled up by the fire, that's not going to really get my adrenaline going because there's really no risk involved there. Whereas somebody that is reading the book, I like to go into the story and that gives me, you're getting the point. So that's why I'm not trying to give some sort of, broad statement that's just because I don't want to commit. It's just irresponsible to commit because it's all a different situation. These are the questions you need to be asking yourself. These are the questions that you need to be considering. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out what you feel most comfortable with. What about the platform? Well, I think we might have just talked about this like kind of recently, but again, reoccurring theme. There's not a black and white answer to this. There is a question though that again you need to ask yourself. And that is, what is important to me or my strategy? And I'm just, for this to symbolize or to illustrate it, I should say, I'm just going to use myself as an example. That way I don't have to create some person. I'll just speak from experience. So I love technical trading charts. That is what is very important to, me and my strategy is I use technical charts. They are the absolute backbone to my trading strategies. So because of this, I'm going to want a broker who has technical charts that I like. Now, again, think back to personal preferences. Vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice cream, strawberry ice cream. The charts I like, again, even thinking back to the whole wider, discussion we just had. Like is kind of, how do you define like? How do I define like? Just because I like technical charts of one person, somebody else may be like, those are the ugliest things ever. Personal preference. So, but point here being is that I am going to need a broker that's got technical charts that I like. So to me, in some cases, having a beautiful, beautiful technical chart may very well be worth paying a little bit more in trading commissions. Maybe I'm willing to deal with a wider spread because you know what? Yeah, I realize the spread's a little bit wider, But those charts, they're a thing of beauty, so I'm willing to put up with, a slightly larger trading spread. Maybe it could be, you know what? I mean, the charts are solid and all, but that spread, that's just, or maybe those commissions are just too high. I mean, bummer. I really do like those charts, but I don't like them enough to have to pay that commission, or I don't like them enough to have to deal with that wider spread. Case by case basis. I mean, now if you find yourself, I love those charts, and that you're losing and losing and losing, and when you go back and look at your trades, well, crap, those, the commission structure is what's really getting me. It's that wider spread that's really getting me. It's those fees that are getting me. Well, then at that point, probably take that as a sign as, all right, it looks like you're going to have to sacrifice on the charts. But all back to personal preference situation. So what is your platform? I don't know. If your strategy is going out on your back porch, looking up into the sky, looking at stars and saying, okay, I see that constellation and that's lining up right there, and that one is swooping down here, and oh, there's a comet across the sky, and oh, there's a shooting star that's going to, if that is your strategy, well, then you're going to want a platform that makes that easy. So I don't know what that platform would be, but if you don't know, well, I don't know what my strategy is going to be yet. Good. That's fine, because next, in the next video, we're going to talk about analysis methods, but it's hard to determine what sort of platform you want, and therefore what sort of broker you want, if you have no idea what you really care about in terms of your strategy, which is why, again, good segue into the next video. We're going to talk about a couple of different analysis methods that'll hopefully set you off on the right, kind of path to, all right, yeah, I think I want to do that analysis method. And when you can answer that question, then you're going to be able to, answer this question a little bit better. So I guess we're working backwards a little bit. And when you can answer this question, then you can start to, branch back and figure out what sort of ultimate broker, that you want to use. And I will talk more about this in the next video, but if you're thinking, well, I'm not quite sure on the platform because I have, 2 or 3 narrowed down, all demo. If the Forex market does one thing right, I swear everybody and their brother has a demo account. So create a demo account and just check out how the platform works. And that way you can get involved with it. So there's nothing, you don't have to just go by screenshots or anything like that. You can actually get involved. So, at the end of the day, if you're kind of struggling and just want to know, hey, demos, they're all over the place. Now, this is something that I feel like, heck, I even remember forgetting it and probably wasn't even really aware of it, when I was looking for a broker, but, more so for stock trading because, when I was newer, I was thinking, oh, crap, I got to apply. Oh, crap, I hope they accept me. Oh, I hope they verify or, accept my application. So, but at the end of the day, I'm like, wait a second, don't think like that. Don't think of, oh, I hope they, I'm so nervous that they're in charge. No, you're the boss. And you are the one that's going to be conducting the interview. So I want to go over a few things here. Now, let's get things cleared. I'm not saying you have to conduct the interview like this, all right? That's probably not a good sign. If you feel like you need to act that way in order to get answers out, that's probably not good. Maybe that broker is a little shady. Maybe that broker is actually operating out of some, little shack that we already saw. So, this is not a good sign if that's how you have to conduct the interview. The interview should be able to be conducted in a good professional manner. And we'll get to that other image here in a little bit. But some just very basic questions to ask. And when I say ask, I'm not saying you necessarily have to call in up and say, all right, now I would like to conduct an interview. A lot of these are going to be on the site themselves. So first question, and this one is very important. What is the withdrawal process of funds? Now, keep in mind, not deposit. Okay. Who cares about deposit? Anybody's going to have a super easy deposit process because, well, that's how they get your money. The withdrawal process is how you actually get the money back. So what is that process? If you got to jump through that hoop and then go over there and then do 10 jumping jacks and then run over there and do 5 push-ups and then call this person who's got to call that person that will call you back in 24 hours, but then you have to go to that person which will get back to you in 36 hours. That's probably not a good broker. That's probably not a good sign. Next big question. How is the money deposited? Is it separate from operational money? This goes back to capitalization. If they are, putting your money in the fund that pays their workers, pays their, technology fees, pays this, that, and the other, that's probably not a good sign. Why? They're not really running a very smart business. They have to take your money and put it into their operational money. So is the money separated? Is it segregated from the operational capital, the operational money of the actual broker themselves? Right here, this should now make sense after we've kind of beaten that dead horse. But are you a dealing desk or a non-dealing desk broker? That would be quite important to you. Next, what year were you founded? If it's 2 weeks ago, I'm not going to say that means that they're terrible. Maybe they're going to be the next greatest broker ever. But in my mind, the risk goes up a little bit more because, they were just founded 2 weeks ago. And I should have noticed earlier. You may be thinking, what the heck, Clay? Why are you where are the questions asking if they are regulated or not? Remember, that's the very, very, very first thing that you should do when you get to that webpage. You should scroll to the bottom and see if they're regulated. If they're not, then there's no purpose in conducting this interview, right? Because it's a waste of your time. It's just not worth it. So that's why you don't see that question anywhere here, because before you even get to this point, like I said, the must-do rule is you got to start at the regulation, and registration. So that's why you don't see that here, because if that's not, checked off, then there's no point in going and figuring out any of this other stuff. Because even if they gave you perfect answers to all of this stuff, it doesn't matter because they're either regulated or not regulated, or they're regulated in some shady country. So back to this, I should have noted at the beginning, but what currency pairs do you offer for trading? I mean, if you want to trade, the euro dollar and they don't offer the euro dollar, well, that's probably good to know before you start to, fill out and send the money and all that sort of stuff. So don't fill out the paperwork and send the money and then figure out, hey, wait, you don't have the euro dollar, but I want to trade that. Another big one. What are your commissions? What are your fees? How does all that work? Are there any hidden fees? Is it going to cost me, $100 to withdraw my money? So just because, they may say that, there's no commissions and this, that, and the other, get the link. All brokers should have a link that takes you to the commission page and is going to, give you, if you want to do an outgoing wire, it costs this much. If you want to do an ACH transfer, it's going to cost you this much. If you want to send in a check, some of them are not going to charge you anything, but this is the link is where you're going to find out any of the hidden fees. And a hidden fee may be, all right, yeah, there's no commissions, but then all of a sudden you figure out that when you want to withdraw money, it's $50. So right there is a kind of hidden little commission there. Every time you want to withdraw money back to your account, they're going to be charging you $50. What does your trading platform offer? Do you have a demo? Like I said, this is almost a must. Like if your broker doesn't have a demo, why the heck not? Like, yeah, that is a must-have. They need to have some sort of demo, because if you don't, then I don't know. It seems like all Forex brokers should have a demo, especially in this day and age. I don't think I've come across one that hasn't had one. Is it mobile? Again, part of your strategy. Do you need to be able to check on your phone? Do you need to be able to, do certain attributes of your strategy from your phone? If so, then hey, that is something that you need to be considering and asking. Do you have different account types? What are those requirements? We'll look at that more on the next slide here. But that's something else that you're going to need to consider, because obviously if they have some sort of requirement that you can't meet, well, then that's kind of peace out, party over, move on to the next broker. Customer service, always very important. When can I contact you? Do I have to always use this chat box? Can I only do email? Can I actually call somebody up on the phone? And in some senses, you're going to be doing this as you conduct the interview. I mean, if you're going through the website, and again, I'm not saying you have to call up somebody and talk to them, but if you're going through the website and just answering, all these things are easy because the website is very user-friendly. You don't get the impression that they're hiding anything. They're very upfront about, the commissions and fees. I'm not saying that if they charge you money to withdraw, that's a bad thing. But if you have to click on 8 million links to get to the point of them finally admitting that, yeah, they charge you, that's a little bit shady. So, conducting the interview, again, does not need to be, how they're, vocally or verbally, I should say, answering these questions. It's just, how easy is a website, to go through, how easy is it to get these answers for what you're looking for. And as far as this image, if this is you and you feel like this is the broker, maybe you do call them up, or maybe you just feel like the website is very, very pushy, is very, very kind of in your face and almost just creepy, like, oh, what? Chill out, back. Can you give me some space? That's probably not a good sign either. On the flip side of things, again, you don't need to be like this when conducting the interview, but the broker doesn't need to be like that to you either. They don't need to be creeping you out, getting up in your space. That's also unnecessary. So there's kind of, it's a two-lane road here. You want to make sure that, you feel comfortable with everything. Now, a couple of different cheat sheets that I like to use for the interview. Going back to the previous slide, there's, what about these account types? Here is just one example that I found on a broker's page that goes over the account type. And I'm not going to go over every little thing here, but it does do a good job of kind of quickly summarizing, what's going on. So for their account types, quote unquote, their mini account type, you need a $50 minimum. Their standard account type, you need at least $5,000. Their active trader type, you need at least $25,000. And then you can see here, for when you're trading, you have to do at least 1,000 minimum lot sizes. Hey, we just learned about lot sizes. Perfect. Right there, 1K minimum lot size. And then so on and forth. Here offers 50 to 1 leverage, 50 to 1 leverage, 50 to 1 leverage. Right here, spreads only. So because it's spreads only, what's that going to tell you? Well, that's going to be a dealing desk. Here they have low spreads, but they also offer commission. So they're letting you know, the spreads are actually very low, but that means there's commission. So I do like that. They're admitting that there is commissions, but in order to get those low spreads, you are having to pay commissions. So this, of course, no dealing desk or a non-dealing desk. Same thing over here, but right here, nice. They're giving you even cheaper commissions, but again, there are commissions involved because it's a no dealing desk. You got telling you the different platforms that their site's on, and so on and so forth. So that's just a very quick cheat sheet, for doing the interview, because it's answering a whole bunch of things, right then and there. The also other page to keep an eye out for, which I'm pretty sure all brokers have them. It's not like this is some sort of revolutionary concept, but the FAQs stand for frequently asked questions. There should be something like this on their website. And again, that's just a very efficient way to conduct the interview and, get those questions answered that you need answered. So at the end of the day, like I said, so much personal preference goes into this. You got to have an idea of what sort of analysis method you want to use. Again, next video, when you know what sort of analysis method you want to use, that's going to help lead you to, well, what matters to me in a platform? When you know what matters to you in a platform, that's going to help. Okay, well, these brokers offer that platform. Now you got to, okay, but do these brokers work? Are these brokers, do they meet everything else that I need? But of course, that first step needs to be scroll down to the bottom of the page, figure out, are they regulated? Are they registered? And, that's going to save you a whole lot of time, because there'd be nothing worse than spending, a good chunk of your precious time and then figuring out, oh crap, I forgot to scroll down to the bottom of the page. Oh crap, they're regulated in insert country that's not exactly a country that's in the news because they're doing so well. So always start off there and then figure out what you want. Ask yourself those questions, and that is going to eventually lead you to the path that you want. But worst case, you're totally wrong about what path. You're totally wrong about what platform. You're totally wrong about the commission fees structure that you want. That just means you got to go back, research again, open up a new account, and transfer your money over there. So it's a hassle, yes, but not the end of the world. So I don't want you to be overwhelmed, but these guidelines are going to help point you in the right direction.